We still don't know what AI agents are, but we'll probably figure it out at some point. But there's still no clear definition of what an AI agent is, but we'll probably figure that out, I'm guessing, by the end of the year. All I'm thinking about it is a workflow or automation that has some type of thinking logic built into it. And today, that's what we're going deep on. I'm hosting my friend Adam from Agent Ops. They do agent observability. He's going to share all the different ways that they're seeing agents being implemented within companies that they have as clients. And then we're going to also talk about marketing applications. And then we're going to also talk about how agents can be used within marketing, specifically the ways that he's seeing it being used by clients to do activities for their sales team that create leads. And this episode is brought to you by Acclaim Podcasting. Founder-led marketing is the most effective way to grow your business in 2025. And Acclaim can make a founder famous in 12 months with a podcast, an email newsletter about that podcast, and then clips from that show. They're a full-service agency that helps with getting your target customer onto your podcast, all of the post-production, and they grow an email newsletter for you by about 5,000 subs per month. And when you combine all that together, it helps make a founder famous in their niche extremely quickly. Go to acclaimpodcasting.com to learn more, or click the link in the description. Let's get started with today's show. Adam, what's good? Dude, I'm so stoked to have you here.
This is a good one.
How you been, man? Okay, so how many agents are running right now in the background for your clients? Like while we're having this conversation,
Like tens of thousands, definitely for our clients. Us personally, like our team has like 50 plus agents we're running every day, which is
that's
crazy.
insane, man.
It's like we got more agent headcount than human headcount, and I think like we are kind of on the bleeding edge of this. But give other companies a few months, maybe a year, and I think every company's gonna be the same way. Just because
100%.
every person should have assistants. Just a matter of like how do you get them set up? How do you actually productionize them? And that's kind of the main challenge.
Totally. I feel like in the last week or like 2 weeks, this idea of like vibe marketing has like I don't know. I just see it ripping everywhere. It's funny, you're like when you break it down, like we were all doing versions of this. Like for the last, 3 years, it's been like, okay, how do I write software that basically is doing keyword research for me to then write articles, to then publish those, to then refresh the articles based off of the keyword data we're getting. And you take any marketing flow and it's that same thing. Like here's a human process and I'm trying to automate as much as I can. But I feel like right now we're having this moment where you can finally like put a name to that activity, which is this like vibe marketing kind of idea. But the actual application of this is, I think, what people are trying to figure out. Like everybody's like, oh yeah, an agent. Well, what the fuck is an agent is, I think, the biggest question. For me, how I think about it is like there's some type of AI reasoning that's happening within the automation. So like a traditional automation is just like a step by step. There's like no decision making that's occurring. And in contrast, the agentic version of this is where it's making some type of decision based off of the data it's finding or the data that it's recording, et cetera. But I'd love to hear how you like think about this in a marketing framework, like how you guys use this, as like agents within the marketing flow. And then like, what does that even look like? Like, where's the boundary? Where's the line in relationship to marketing?
Sweet. Yeah. So to give like quick run on what an agent is, I think my co-founder Alex, he like gave a TED AI talk and he had like the best, most succinct version like I even used to like explain agents to my mom. And the way to think about these agents are like Waymos. So like in San Francisco, we have these like Waymos that drive you from point A to point B. And they're, these are automated hardware, cars that drive you from place to place. You got to think about these agents as like automated pieces of software that take you from point A to point B. So a good example, like one I use every day is we get like thousands of inbound requests every week for people wanting to book meetings with us, people who want us to build agents for them. And I used to manually go through and like look at every person who's booking a meeting with me and vet them and do some like lead scoring. And then I had like my VA doing it for a while. And then we're like, okay, we're going to hire somebody to do this. And this was like a function that we just built an agent for. And now like every time a customer comes inbound, we're doing full lead scoring on them. So like any of the big brands reaching out to us, you're definitely going to get on the phone with me at some point. Cause like this agent is, to a T knows who our current users are, knows what we should be looking for, looks to see like, is this even the right person at a company to be speaking with? And if that's the case, like we'll have an intro with them, but we know like the next step is, hey, we need to make sure that like we're multi-threading this conversation properly and actually talking to the right folks at the organization. And these are things like, when you think about marketing and these automations overall, think like, what did a human do? Like I just explained a process like I used to manually do every day. And that's a really, really good stepping stone into what agents should be built. And I think a lot of like companies come to us and they're asking for AGI. Like half the consulting work we do is companies coming to us saying, hey, we need to automate this entire workflow, this entire process for this entire person's job. And I have to spend a lot of time with telling them like, we don't have AGI yet. We don't have this like all encompassing agent that can just do anything. Everything right now is like really purpose built. There is some stuff that's more generalized, but I mean like the best agents, the companies we're seeing like actually make the most revenue, per agent, for lack of better words, are these ones that are going and building these custom solutions from the ground up.
No, that makes total sense. What you just said, just like it was crazy for me to think about. Like you used to look at like a revenue per employee as like a metric of success for a startup, and now it's like a revenue revenue per agent that's being deployed. Or
We
I
also
mean,
yeah.
yeah, I don't even know how to even think about that honestly. But
We also do like revenue per token. That's an interesting one. Like I think a lot more
totally
companies are gonna start thinking through now. It's like, if
fascinating.
everything has an LM baked into it, it's like, okay, what's the revenue per token we're generating? I think that's like a
Totally.
metric like you'll probably see investors start caring more about in the coming months.
Totally. I mean, I'm seeing this with like vibe coding in particular, where people are like looking at, okay, well, how can I do the work up front? Whether it's using like a tool like what is it called, like codeguide.dev, I think is one of them, where it basically does like a PRD and like kind of the whole structure of the application, like what the UI should look like. Here's the database structures and how they're interacting with each other, et cetera, up front, so that the tokens that are necessary to like get you to the final product are basically less. And I think it makes total sense. Like, why wouldn't we apply that in the marketing sphere as well, or in the growth sphere? So all right, so I think that gives context to like how agents like fit into this. Can you talk to me about how companies are like thinking about how they're like, are they replacing employees? Are they just like not even hiring those employees? It's probably a combination of things. I imagine enterprises like, this job that used to take 100 people, we're now doing it with one of these agents. And startups are like, oh, we don't need to hire people. We're just going to have like a crack team of 5 to 10 and we'll get to 100 million ARR with that alone. What are you guys seeing from the front lines, kind of from your clients on the marketing side?
So I think there's a framework that anyone who's listening to this, I might have posted about it publicly, but it's important for people to understand. There's kind of 3 criteria we're looking for when you start thinking about like, is an agent a good fit for this particular task? So first, we want to look for like tasks that are very expensive. Don't try and replace your lowest like level employees that are just like, think about the processes in your company that are really expensive. That are I think that's the first criteria. Number 2 is, are these tasks repeatable? I think having a lot of companies are coming to us as if it's like AGI type thing that can handle any scenario. We spend a lot of time here building evals, and we can talk through that. But the whole thing is, if it's repeatable, it's very easy to build an eval set to actually test what success is. And then something that's like low risk. So for example, like we'll work with a hedge fund to build out agents to do financial research, but it's not actually executing trades right yet, like so far. So you got to think through like, what are the things in my company or my marketing process or sales process that are low risk enough that it's not going to like lose you a multi-million-dollar Cisco contract, for example, if you screw it up. So just kind of to reiterate, it's like tasks that are very expensive, tasks that are repeatable, and tasks that are low risk. And if you can hit off all 3 of those criteria, you're in such a good place to start automating.
Totally. I think what you just said was specifically about this idea of we're almost in this curation economy moment where the expert is just like looking over the work that one of these has done, right? Like that's, whether it's a trade that needs to be made, but it's all of that upfront kind of research and process and that's getting them, 90% of the way there, the last 10%. I mean, what's funny too is like, we're finding that people, that's actually what they want to pay for, right? Like they don't want to pay for the AI solution. They want to pay for that last 10%. They don't care how you basically get there. But I mean, just to beat like blunt, like it's like, okay, cool. Like I can charge $29 a month for the software that gets to 90% of the way there, or I can charge $3,000 a month to layer a human on that last 10% that like gets it all the way there for the client. And they're willing to pay that 3K versus that 29. Like, what are you going to go do if you're going to build a company, right? Like you're going to focus on that higher like payout. But
it's interesting. I think a lot of people who are like first prospects in the space trying to figure out what to build, we're building that 90% solution. And a lot of the large enterprises that are coming to us now, they're like, we don't even really care as much about the budget. It's just like, what will this actually, like, what is like the tangible business benefit here? And I think as great as it is having these like kind of proof of concepts that can, you can go up to management and say, hey, we're investing in agents. That's great. But it's like, what's that last 10%? And to take even a little step back here, it's like my co-founder, Alex, and I, we started building agents in March 2023 doing data entry automation. And these agents were like hitting 90% accuracy. So we went to go like pitch it to these massive companies. They were like, this is great, but if it doesn't have 4 nines of accuracy, we're never going to be able to trust this thing in production. And that's how we started building like observability for agents, debugging agents, and all this type of stuff. But it was that exact same problem was like, this is great. 90% of the way there, maybe for some mom and pop shop will work great or something like that. But like the large enterprises, they need that reliability. And if they can't seek it, they're going to go build some internal solution to actually figure out how to get as high as possible.
100%. 100%. Something else that you mentioned, I just want to circle back on is this idea of like documentation of the processes. Like nothing can be automated or replaced or, given to offshore talent without that. I see this so often in marketing. Like I just had a guy on as an example. It's like email marketing is his whole business, right? And he just got basically the whole conversation was going deep on email marketing. And I was like, what's the biggest mistake that you see people make? His immediate response is they try to from 0 to 1 write an email newsletter on a weekly basis. He's like, just don't do that. Number one, have a simple templated framework where it's like, cool, section 1 is about X, section 2 is about Y, section 3 is about Z, right? And then all you have to do is basically go find content to fit into that template that you've created. And without that, you're going to spend, 10 hours to do this email every week because you have to think, actually do the ideation. But when you have that constraint, it actually makes it easier. And I think that is a very simple way to kind of illustrate how these to think about agents in the processes side. If you don't have a well-defined system that you can hand off to a team member or a junior employee, an agent is probably not going to be the solution for you whatsoever. And it from an implementation standpoint. So, with that said, talk to me about how people are using marketing agents. What's the first one that you're seeing and it make a lot of impact for companies?
So one that we run internally is like a social listening agent. So basically, you guys, I don't know, there's a bunch of companies that tried to do this. I actually used to. I'll say a little growth one here. This is fun, but I used to run 1,000 Reddit accounts and basically be able to curate and create trends using these different Reddit accounts. And I still see Reddit as this really incredible untapped marketing resource that so many brands want to figure out how to navigate. So many brands want to know how to leverage it, but they're not doing it well. And there's a bunch of social listening tools out there that will basically, for example, we want to help Fortune 500 companies build agents, or we want to help with agent observability. We're looking for certain keywords and phrases that people are looking for on the internet and going and responding to that. So initially we had this as a human doing this 24/7. So it's okay, here's your social listening platform. Whatever keywords we were looking for, they were populating there. And we I'm kind of going through this. You got to do this process manually first before you figure out automations. But now what we have is a way to basically look through social list, take all the social listening data in on one side, and on the other end have responses that are auto drafted. The caveat is that we're keeping a human in the loop. We're not going in and saying, hey, this agent is going acting rogue and just posting content left, right, and center. At the end of the day, it's my personal brand, it's my, our company's brand, it's all these types of things come into play. And I think a lot of companies are very wary when it's hey, we're just gonna let this agent go run free and run wild. But what we've realized time and time again is that you can get 90% of the way there in terms of getting a response out there. And that now allows you to have a seat at the table. Now you're not having, an overseas team or someone on your team manually writing out all these requests. This is what I used to do when I used to manage 1,000 Reddit accounts. This is pre-AI, pre-agents, pre-everything. Really just had a team who was just writing responses 24/7. And that was great. But now it's with these agents, this is a massive, massive unlock for businesses.
100%. Yeah. And I mean, that's a perfect example of okay, cool. It gets it to that final, point, right? Right before it gets posted, right before it goes live, right before it's public. And that's where the human's coming in over the top and doing that last edit, just really gut checking whatever the activity is that it's doing. That's one of them. I feel like that, there's so many that are in this space that are. Go ahead.
There's a company called TripleWhale. I don't know. Have you heard of them?
I know TripleWhale. Yeah.
They just launched something called OrcaBase. We're good friends with their team there. We are using it now in a bunch of our projects to do automatic, basically rebalancing of ad spend. So this is something that every company is going to be doing, and anybody who's interested in trying more about this, I can connect you directly with the team there. But this is such a massive need. I used to work in marketing, and you'd have either an agency doing this full time, or there'd be some assassin on your team whose full time job was just managing ad spend across all these different verticals. And this is a role that the agents are actually better than humans. Like oftentimes, like, it's you're crunching numbers 24/7 if you're in one of these roles trying to figure out where do we optimize spend. And if the agent can say, hey, your Bing ads for whatever reason are outperforming your Google ads, here, let's transfer budget over to it. Like these are great things you should be doing in real time. And I think this is kind of the future of basically everyone in e-com or everyone in like that has SaaS companies. They're going to be using these agents to do the rebalancing. It'll be interesting to kind of see like on the other end, like once we kind of hit critical mass of everybody using these tools, what actually happens. But right now, there's so much alpha if you just like kind of lean in or build these kind of systems yourself. And we've seen a lot of companies also doing the same thing.
Totally. And it's not like anything new. I think that's the thing. Like I just had an ads guy on recently and he's like, yeah, it's, nothing has changed in the amount of like the process, right? Like if you're looking at a performance marketer, they're making 10,000 different ad variations, running them all against each other. Whatever's the highest performer, they go and they dedicate $1 million a month in ad spend. And that's how they're like, basically getting their returns. Okay. So that process, that used to be a human going or a team of people going and creating all those ad variations. Now, this, again, like something that we're doing as an example is you find pain points using Perplexity, you pull those out, turn those into hooks, and I write 100 different script variations based off of that, right?
I got
Based
another.
off of the ad libraries of the competitors that we scraped. And then you go, you test those all against each other, and you find you're just doing a process that has already been in used previously, but at a scale and at a velocity that's so much higher. On the triple whale thing, just to give context to what that is, because I just want to go a little bit deeper on it so the audience understands. So triple whale is a data warehousing company for e-com. It's basically like it's a CDP from my understanding, right? It's like a customer data, it basically just stores it all, everything related to your customer. So they're sitting on this data lake or this data warehouse of all this information. They're now basically allowing you to take all of that, that insight, and then go and automatically run your Facebook ads, your Google ads, etc., to whatever the goals are that you're trying to accomplish, and then it's just auto optimizing based off of the resource constraints that you provide it and the data that it has within its warehouse. And when you think about like a defensibility standpoint, and also I know what's that storage company? It's not is it Box? I believe they're doing this exact same thing where they're basically like, yeah, we were a data storage company and now like AI comes, now we're suddenly basically an information like decision making like tool for huge enterprise clients. But I if you scale this up and then you go down that chain where it's like, cool, maybe it just starts out and it's only doing ad spend, right? But then it gets into, okay, now it can use icon.me to make new creative. Now it can use, any of these AI UGC, like ad creators, like ArcAds as an example, to go and like have a human actually say, say the actual edits or say, do these script variations. And you're also scraping in everything that's happening within the market from the Facebook ads library API. Like, as this scales up, I think it just turns into this like, I don't even think I'm over here like geeking out on this and like freaking out because the impact that this is going to be able to make is like what a team of 200 people that were all cracks were doing previously. Now a single person's going to be able to. But
Yeah, like,
anyway,
another crazy one. So like I used to spend like probably 30 hours a week in sales calls, like try to like basically like meeting new prospects, doing all this stuff. And my co-founder, and I could probably I'll send you a link to it, but he made a clone of me and like it kind of went viral on like LinkedIn and Twitter. And what I'm doing now is I'm actually going into the studio and I'm doing 12-hour recordings of myself with perfect lighting, perfect audio, and we're gonna go like actually make a proper clone of myself. So we're an agent company. The first interaction you're gonna have with us is talk to the agent first, and that's gonna do like our lead scoring. It's gonna tell you like if it's if this is a good lead for us. Otherwise, it's gonna send a bunch of resources. And I'm pretty transparent about it because I think like people have different needs. Some people will come to us like hair on fire. I need an agent in the next like 4 weeks. Some people are like, we're like looking into the space, and like that's a great place for me to say, hey, here are a bunch of resources to get started with. And when you get more serious about it, come our way. But this is the stuff we think quite a bit about. One other thing, like not even agent related, but like I highly recommend everybody who's like listening to this to go through the following exercise. Download WhisperFlow. I don't. Do you use WhisperFlow yet?
no, I haven't used it. I know it exists, but explain it to the audience.
So WhisperFlow is like this, you basically just hold down like the function key on your computer and you can dictate incredibly quickly. So I could type like 100 words a minute. I'm using WhisperFlow like dictation wise, I'm dictating over 200 words per minute. And what I like really recommend everybody do is sit down with like your team member, your co-founder, your marketing lead, someone like that. put WhisperFlow on, go to like a blank Google Doc and just start talking about problems that you're facing. Okay. Go talk about my customers saying this, these are problems internally. Here's what we're seeing, issues people are having. Here's how I think we should pitch this, company, and have just a conversation back and forth. It's so simple. You can even do a fake podcast episode for all that matters. Basically get all this text. And then what you do is go to Claude or go to Perplexity or whatever and say, here's this massive trove of data. Go and create email sequences based on it and come up with your subject line, come up with the hook, come up with the body text. And we did this and it was a game changer for us. Like it's like not rocket science. Like you don't need to be a developer at all. You could like have never touched a line of code in your entire life, but just learn how to leverage these tools in the right way. And it's an absolute gold mine. So this is like it's so tangible. Like after you're done this episode, you can literally get going with it. It's totally free basically. And it's such like this is ways to leverage in your marketing flow that you don't need to be an expert. You don't need to go spend like tens of thousands of dollars building out something custom. You can just do this today.
Totally. I mean, and that whole thing is an automation, right? Like at its core, like, okay, cool. You do a WhisperFlow into a Google Doc that then it could just be a make.com automation that pulls out the information from using Claude, et cetera. And then
write
that
10
pumps right
blogs
into
on it.
instantly. And then you're just setting those variations. And I think that this is the actual unlock for a lot of people is when they realize like, oh, don't use the AI for its general knowledge. Use the AI for like the specialty knowledge that only your company has that's related to the product that you're trying to sell. When you can figure out that, like, how do I unlock the internal data that we have, that the insight that only we have, that's where the real kind of like arbitrage moment, the real alpha is extracted. Because if you just ask an AI, right, like, a simple way to illustrate this is like, write me a 2,000 word blog post about, X. Then what it writes is going to be like very average. But in contrast, if you give it source material from 5 experts that are experts in, say, for example, hotel marketing, and you're like, write me a blog, 2,000 word blog post about hotel marketing trends for 2025 based off of the source text that I provided you, the output that you're going to get from that is going to be, 100x than what you're going to get from the average from that general knowledge of the LLM. So,
yeah, I think a lot of brands and founders we talk to, they're always like in this like they're like, it's so hard for me to create content. Okay. And one of the barriers people need to like break through is kind of twofold is instead of creating, go to copying and curating. So if you see something working well, like go and train, a GPT on it, go and like leverage it so that this becomes your like baseline. So it's like, hey, I just did my WhisperFlow. Now I throw it into this GPT now that understands full context on all these other people and rewrite it in their style. And like, it's such a gold mine. It takes no technical effort. Anybody can set this up. And this is like a big one for like, that's on the copy side. The other piece I always like to kind of emphasize is like, so many creators are like, oh, how do I come up with new ideas and stuff like that? Like one thing that I've been doing for a while now is curation. So it's like, I just see cool stuff every week and I'm like, here, I'm putting in a list of here all like the, things that happen this week in AI agents or whatever it might be. This is stuff that's just on my feed. I'm literally just like looking at it, bookmarking it. I literally have an account where I just send it to, so I just aggregate all the content. I try to get an agent to like automate this whole process. And at the end of the day, like it's my personal brand. I don't want to have like an AI writing stuff for me. So we're still manually doing this process. But it's one of these things, it's like leverage these tools in the best way possible. Like you leverage it to write hooks. Like if you see someone's post does well, like just on Twitter and like LinkedIn, just have like a bookmark tab of like sick content. Like that's what I have. It's like, hey, this is really cool. I like this hook. I like the imaging that he used. I like how, maybe had a great call to action. And like leverage it and then just keep this as a data source. So you just keep on referencing and you will see a tangible impact on your content. There's no question in my mind.
100%. And I think that like, again, this isn't anything new. This is just at a volume and a scale that's like superhuman, right? Like if you're good at social, as an example, like what are you doing? You're posting consistently, you're looking at what's performing best, and then you go and you have that influence the future content that you're making. Like that is just a system. That's a very basic process. And you probably can automate that whole thing, right? It's like, cool, here's our corpus of information that you can work from AI. I want you to go and write, zeets, post them to Twitter, see what the data looks like from an impression standpoint. And then your measurement of success is how many impressions you can get based off of this walled garden of information that we provide you. Like that right there is an automation that I know tomorrow, like somebody would easily go pay like at least $99 to $199 a month for, right? Like so you can go build that literally right now. So
my 2 cents is like so many people are so scared of taking the first step. We have this like ethos at the company. It's actually my co-founder who came up with it, but it's called MVP, minimum viable post. And it's every day get one post out. Okay. It doesn't matter how high quality it is. I sometimes spend time just drafting a bunch. So I have batch posts that are like any day I can guarantee if something go out. But it's such a game changer when like, and I think Dave Port and I talked about this. Is like if you're the guy who like covers Tuesday Night Football at 7 p.m. or whatever it might be, you better show up for that like football or baseball game and record it and make your content on it. And I think once people like you figure out your niche and you figure out how to actually scale this stuff up, it's actually very rewarding and you actually get a lot of cool stuff out of it. But I recommend so many people like figure out your process, figure out like what your MVP is going to be every day, whether it's a content schedule or maybe it's Sunday, you just, start your morning off with a cup of coffee and you literally just start like writing a bunch of ideas that you have for the week, but like really just like start posting is such an incredible thing. Like our team's doing like 2 to 6 million impressions a week organically now with like not $1 paid behind it. And we're getting like some inbound from some of the biggest brands in the world. And it's just because we're out there and like, it's not just the one thing that's interesting. And I think we're going to do a whole episode on this soon, but we can always chat through it. But it's basically, we have like engineers at our company, but we're creating this idea of influence engineers. So we're basically encouraging all of our engineers to post every day as well. So it's like, hey, I just shipped this feature. Hey, I just shipped, like, it's like the building in public now, at a different level. Like I think like a lot of people are building in public and there's indie depths, but now you see like 10 people on a single team all posting every day. You're like, wow, the product's getting amazing. Hey, here are like these little nitty gritty things. And we're getting feedback. Like we'll post a tweet and then people are like, either this is great or this is like horrible, like immediately. And like, how else are you going to get that feedback instead of, I think the old days of setting up like hey, here's a $50 gift card. Let me know what's going on. Like just do that in public now. And like, yeah, you get roasted a bit, but like it's part of the game.
Yeah, but that roasted, like, it creates this engagement flywheel, right? So it's like, okay, now we get more reach, now we get more top of funnel, and then it turned. So I think it serves the business. It's all just dependent on where your target customer is too. Like, I think that's the one thing to remember is like, go to where your audience is. Like, I get asked this more than any other question is like, where should I be marketing? And I'm like, where is your audience? And like, most founders have no idea, like, especially when they're like seed series A. They're like, we don't know. We're not sure where they are, right? It's like, figure that out first. Then you go and you figure out what's the content that's most likely to get consumed on that platform by the people that I'm trying to be in front of. And that's what the process turns into. But
Yeah, then
we've
just make
totally
content.
digressed. Let's bring it
No,
back
it's
to
fine.
use cases.
Run it.
Talk to me
Run it.
about number two. What's another like marketing like agent that you're seeing people implement that's being effective for companies, or something that you guys are doing internally?
So I think like there's some basic like they're not I wouldn't even call them automations, but like if you're not using Superhuman now as part of your sales process, I don't know what you're doing. So like biggest advocate of Superhuman, I now have this like auto draft like response thing in my Superhuman, and it's like literally drafting 90% good enough emails that now I just have to kind of review. So like everybody's listening. Like if you want to build a real company, I think you have to. I'm trying to convert my whole team and everyone onto it, but I think it's the biggest game changer right now. So I use like I don't write emails anymore. That's one thing that I think like people need to understand. So I do like WhisperFlow, so just directly into Superhuman. Then I use the Ask AI feature to rejig it just in case there's anything it wants. And then I'm sending out these emails, and it's like it's like having like a VA 24/7 within your email. Couple other things I'll throw out there. If you are not using Fathom, like as part of your workflow, like every call you're on, like if you're in sales or making sales, like as great as Gong is, like Fathom's like $19 a month or something like that, like use it. And once it's embedded in your Superhuman, the cool thing is you can ask any questions like you would to a virtual assistant. So I have like all my call history and all my email history, like the full ontology now in my Superhuman. And like, so now I can just ask any question, like say, what's the latest with X client? Like, is there any action items? And it literally just pulls everything from Fathom, pulls like all the, next steps from my call recording, drafts an email automatically. And it's like, I think most founders probably spend 10 to 20 hours a week in email. Like if you can cut down 3-4 hours of that by just using these, like using a combination of these softwares in the best way possible, it's an absolute gold mine. So it's not like it's tangible on the marketing side, but it's like you're still doing this 24/7.
Totally. Yeah, I feel like a lot of the use cases so far have been all of these. I mean, just the first ones that feel like that came to market were ton of different like sales activities. Like even, okay, I'm doing call recording. Here's a templated format for what that follow up like needs to look like, so that I can basically circle around with the lead that I just talked to. But I think we're now just on this precipice of okay, here's these like marketing automations that you can implement that are going to create, like, again, a lot of impacts for the brand. Like, to your point of, okay, we're talking about the ads creation, like that was happening with like a TripleWhale or something like that, right? Like, again, if I wanted to go and make, I say that, I use this all the time, but like if UGC ads is the easiest one because the dollar amount is very finite. Like if I wanted to go make 100 different ads with different UGC creators, like that would cost me about 10 grand in the traditional world. So using something like a Billo.app or any of these kind of like, third-party resellers, or even if you went and did the DMs yourself to actually get those influencers. In contrast, you can go make that with the HeyGen API for like, 6 cents, I think is what we did, on our recent. And when you think about that, just from like the ability to like scale up that creation, that's like where all like the speed is the arbitrage right now. And I feel like that is what all of this tooling is doing. So
You got to make sure your team is open to it. That's a big factor. I think so
for
many
sure.
like I have a video editor now. Like he knows how to use HeyGen, he knows how to use all these tools. He didn't know how to use this stuff a couple months ago, but like this becomes like a game changer. And I think you got to make sure your team is very open to testing these things. And honestly, usually proof is in the pudding. Like once they see a tangible benefit, it's very easy to get everyone across the finishing line. But we see these like Luddite teams who are just like scared to use this technology. They're like, oh no, this is gonna. It's like no, there literally could be a 10x productivity boost. And the rule is like, if you're listening to this, you're already probably ahead of the game. But like, make sure you're the one at your company, or if you're starting, like, you're the one who has a seat at the table, who's like the leading expert on this. And 99% of it could just come from watching YouTube, and like people don't realize that.
100%. Yeah, so my brother owns this company. It's like a talent sourcing agency, like one of those offshore ones. It's like a BPO, but he told me in the last like 3 months in particular, like everybody that's coming through pipeline for them has basically just been entirely focused on, hey, like I want people that are like AI native with this. Like I'm not looking for a full stack engineer. I'm looking for like somebody that has been like diligently using Cursor for the last 3 years. I don't even care if they know how to like do deep, like basically just like leaning on all of these tools that are out there. And that's the hiring focus. That's the hiring premise of any of these companies, because again, if you have those people, suddenly it takes it turns an average person into a 10x person when they have that ability to implement this tool stack, within their whole workflow. So
For sure. I'm trying to think some
but
other cool stuff that like we're seeing. I think a lot of companies are very much on like the experimentation phase right now, and like that's totally fine. Like I think like we do tests like almost every day, and like we see kind of how it works. This could be as simple as like mass sending DMs that are like very like focused on certain subjects. One interesting one that I literally just started testing last week, and we on the next episode we can talk about. U.com has this agent called Ari, and they gave me early access to it, so I've been testing it for a while. And I was trying to figure out, like, basically it's like deep research, but creates these like really in-depth marketing reports, or like very in-depth like industry reports, like similar to like when McKinsey comes out with, hey, industry trends on AI agents, and they go blast this out to everybody. You can get Ari to do one of these very in-depth reports. It'll go seek like 400 different like sources. It like cites everything, makes it really awesome. But this is like an amazing like lead gen tool. I don't think people realize it. So like I literally just went on it, and like a couple of companies reached out to us, and I'm like, hey, you're in pharmaceuticals. Here are like the top ways that pharmaceutical companies are using AI agents today. That was basically the query that I gave it to this U.com agent called Ari. And it went and made a full report, and it literally comes out with like a PDF that you can just go attach to your email. And this is like typically, like I don't even know how you would have done this previously. Like you would have had like a team of analysts go and write these reports, but now it's like you're coming to the table with something very tangible, being like, hey, I did my work. Like they don't know that maybe one day, like after listening to this, they're gonna know that it takes like a sub a minute to make one of these fully in-depth reports. And obviously you want to read it and make sure like it's not talking about your biggest competitor or anything like that. But this is the type of stuff that's so tangible. And it's like once you include it as part of your workflow, like there's gonna be an API available for it soon. So I could see like a full like clay funnel, like clay pipeline going from, hey, here's a person that I want to reach out to. Here's now a case study that we saw they mentioned in. Now here's like a full on like, couple page document with like full citations and everything about like how we see their industry going. And then now you're coming in as an industry expert, and you did no work. Like you didn't have like your, BDR or someone go research the industry or anything like that. You're just leveraging the tools in the best way possible.
Totally. Totally separate but related to this is we've been experimenting with having Google Deep Research like do case study research on specific companies like marketing strategies. So for example, like what was Mixpanel's like social media strategy, like what was Canva's SEO strategy. And then we take that source file and we go and we turn it into a podcast. I did it for myself just as like a way to like, okay, how do I consume, every case study that I can find and just try to download all of it. But the quality, it's not perfect, right? But like it's 80% of the way there where I'm like, damn, I actually like learned something. It took something away from this that previously that would have taken, a team of 5 researchers like a month to go find, and then basically to write a script out. It would just be impossible, just like full stop. But other marketing use cases, like what are these tactical things that you're seeing companies do? And not even marketing too. Maybe it's just like business operations. Like what are the best use cases right now for the agents outside of the sales space that you're seeing kind of being implemented?
Cool. So I mentioned like social listening, I mentioned some research stuff. There's this like one really underutilized tool that like no one realizes. Well, some people do, but within Twitter, they have something called Radar. Have you tested it yet, Cody?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So Radar is this like social listening tool just for Twitter. And it is the absolute gold mine for any marketer right now. So we built an agent that basically navigates the browser and goes through it and then basically comes up with a list of things we should respond to. Kind of like what I was talking about before. But if you're paying for Twitter Premium, you get like a certain amount of queries. They're like Boolean queries. You can add a bunch of different terms into it. But you can just basically make like a whole, like for example, I just want to find agent developers who are building with certain frameworks. So like Agents SDK from OpenAI, Crew AI, LangChain, Llama-Index, like basically all the companies that we're integrated with. And I could just have this agent that just goes goes and looks through Radar for these different keywords, and then finds conversations that are relevant. And then if I want, using like browser use or BrowserBase or one of these tools, I can actually go and have it automatically do the response. So I can have it like queue everything up in a Google Sheet. I can go edit the responses, then I could basically like give it the commands and go for it, and then it's going and automatically responding. And it's just so, it's at our fingertips. Like, it's just, you got to just test these things and see what works and what doesn't. That stuff's super, super interesting. A cool one that I recommend people try out, and like, I'm giving all the secrets here, but that's, I think, the fun thing in life is that course creation is going crazy right now. Everybody like wants to figure out, okay, how do I learn AI? How do I learn whatever? So let's just say you want to do something about like pet grooming, for example. So you want to like create a lead gen for your pet grooming business. What I would do is I just go on to Manus or go on to Perplexity or Deep Research or one of these tools and literally just ask it like, what are the best tips for dog grooming? Go find me all the top YouTube videos in the space. You take this content, you put into Notion, you make it look somewhat nice, and then you take that and you put it behind a Gumroad like link where you have to give someone your email. And it's so like no brainer. Like it's like you just make it super, direct. Here are 10 the best videos on how to do dog grooming or whatever it is, but that becomes your lead gen funnel. And I think that like so many people are so scared to like make content. It's like this is such low hanging fruit. And obviously like you got to test it. Like your first one's probably not going to hit and be like drive $1 million in sales right away. But eventually you will figure out, okay, like this is what people like. And I really recommend doing this regardless of what your space you're in. So it's like not rocket science stuff. It's just like, how are you lose? And I really tried to make sure like we're not talking like here like, hey, you need to go get your engineering team to go commit like 4-week sprint on building all these agents. Like, what are the tools that exist right now, and how can you leverage them in the best way possible?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, we're using a version of that for like my personal email newsletter growth. Like we just took an episode, right, turned it into a PDF download, like using a transcript and then Claude. And then just have a call to action, basically, like if you want this thing, like comment or whatever, or get it here, right? And then it's basically just. But you could do that on a weekly cadence. Like what we're recording right now could be turned into this exact same thing, right? Like here's the use case, the 10 ways that AI is being used within, or agents are being used within marketing in 2025, right? Something like that. It's perfect.
Build
but
once, sell twice. Like build
exactly.
the pipe. So it's like, hey, I record this episode today. When's the written piece of content coming out? When is the clip going out? Like build that process out. And I think it's so important. And just try and figure out what's repeatable as much as possible. Like you don't need to reinvent the wheel every week. I think so many people like really want to go and create some crazy content. Like I'm all power to you, but like if you're running a company, like how much time can I really dedicate to content creation and like growing a following every day? It's like at the end of the day, like I have to, my priority is running the business. So you got to figure out these automations and figure out like one thing as well is like how do you empower your like VA or your assistant to use these tools? I remember like I was showing my VA AutoGrid forever ago before it was like publicly released, and she just came to me. She's like, can I show this to my team? Like we're my friends in the Philippines. She goes like, if they had access to this would like change their life. And there's tools like this. Like you just need to make sure that they're even aware that these tools exist, and then leverage them to the best of your abilities.
No, 100%. But I think for a lot of people, though, it's just like this daunting task. And like what you need to break it down into is like, what is the 10% that you can automate today? And then how do you just automate 10%, over the next whatever month? It's not like doesn't have to be a huge overhaul. And I feel like you probably experienced that with a lot of the enterprise like clients that you guys work with, where they're like, yo, we want to automate this whole thing. You're like, actually, let's start with the smaller piece and then we're going to work our way up into this. Could you talk to me about like agents interacting with other agents and like what those workflows look like? Again, I think this is one of those things that people hear. They don't, like what are the tangible versions of this? And I almost just want to treat the last bit of this episode where we just like rapid fire sprint through all these different
Sure.
ways that people are using in it or
Yeah.
using these agents within like business workflows. So
Sweet. So like multi agents are like the future. We bet on this like early on. Really the best agents across like every category, maybe except for like customer support, all have some type of multi agent tendencies. So you can think about these like multi agent systems as like different agents, like or different team members who are working together to get a single job done. So for example, you could have an HR agent that writes a job description, then pulls data from your website to make it relevant, then reviews it, and then actually has it posted on Glassdoor. Like that's an entire workflow that like there's all these different agents that are doing different tasks. And the cool thing about these agents is that like, you can give each one of them different tools and different LLMs. So you're not just, the most expensive models you don't need to be using every time. We use Gemini for a bunch of tasks just because it's incredibly effective and incredibly efficient when it comes down to cost. So think about these like different team members as different people have different brains. Like you can basically get as defined as you want with them. And then you can basically have them go do any task you want. So the one framework we've been really using, like it just came out a couple of weeks ago now, is the OpenAI Agents SDK. So we were one of the launch partners with it for our platform AgentOps, and it's been wild how good it is. So like, yes, you have to be a developer to use these tools, but you don't need to be like, crazy math wizard to get started. It's just watch a couple tutorials. Like there's so much content out there and like just start looking at like what's working. But these multi-agent systems are insane because you can basically curate like an entire end-to-end workflow, everything from like go and interact with this website to pull this data into the CRM to draft this email and have it ready to go into my drafts. And these just become little agents that are just either sequential or working together to actually go complete a task. And we've seen crazy automations built out with it, with this type of stuff.
let's get into the technical pieces because like this audience, this is what they live for, right? So it's like, okay, what are the stacks that you're using? Are you using like frameworks like Crew? What is actually working right now? What are the models that are working right now? Like where should people be like investing their time based off of the data you guys are seeing from the front lines?
So yeah, we've seen like millions of agent runs now. So like we have a good sense of like what actually works and what doesn't. And so a couple things. We built out a framework a while ago called Agent Stack. And what it basically is like you can choose any LLM, you can choose, and I can send you a graphic after, you might be able to like put it up right here or something like that. But basically you can choose what model you want, you can choose what framework you want. So we're integrated with like Crew AI, LangGraph, Agents SDK, and Llama-Index. Those are like the four that we're seeing a ton of traction with. There's some other cool ones like Monster and a bunch of them. But what really makes these frameworks powerful, like we are totally agnostic in terms, and AutoGen's another one from Microsoft that's really good. But we're totally agnostic when it comes to frameworks. It's like all I care about is what's going to get us the best outcome. And usually, like each one of these agent frameworks has different benefits. I say like LLM really depends on the use case. If you're looking more coding specific, Claude from Anthropic is by far the best. If you're looking for better like reasoning models, maybe the OpenAI models or the Google models are the best. And it really just depends on the use case. So this is one thing, like it does take some trial and error. We have like a whole eval and testing platform that like helps out with this type of stuff. But you kind of just have to start like taking swings at bat and seeing what hits is the most kind of important piece. But what gets these agents super powerful are two things. It's tools and then internal data. So within our agent stack framework, and like you can use these with any of these frameworks as well, there's a whole bunch of tools that crush it. So like there's AgentQL, which is an amazing, like basically like web research tool, can pull data, can take actions for you. You have tools like BrowserBase, browser use, which I mentioned. There's Composio, which like allows you to connect to, I think, like a few hundred apps now, which is insane. So now when you're building an agent, you're not like limited by like the LLMs or taking actions. Like now you can do any action on the web, which is incredible. You can take any action within like any API call, which is great. You can do auth automatically. You can do payments through Stripe or Payman or one of these companies. So it's really, really cool to like, once you kind of break down this whole process, it's like, okay, what tools do I need to accomplish this task? And the second piece is what internal data do I need to access in order to get there? So NVIDIA last week released like a whole suite of different tools for actually pulling in all this data. We've been like chatting with a bunch of companies who have data in like Databricks and in Snowflake and all these traditional places. And now all these companies are making all this data agent accessible. So really like the structure is as follows. Like, you got to figure out your LLM. You got to figure out what framework you want to use, or just build your own custom agent. Like I said, like Agents SDK is incredibly impressive right now. If you haven't heard about it or tested it out yet, like jump off this and try it. You got to figure out your tools, you got to figure out your internal data, and then you got to figure out like your monitoring eval suite. And that's where we've been helping with agent ops. But like that's kind of the lay of the land. It's like important to like test a bunch of stuff and like give your team like 1 hour sprints is what I recommend. Like, hey, here's an hour, go watch a YouTube video for 15 minutes, and for 45 minutes, get as far as humanly possible. And I'm confident you could probably get 80% of the way there using Agent Stack or using Crew or using one of these frameworks just by like literally going into it and just trying to get as much done as quickly as possible.
That's fascinating. Are you seeing anybody build these with like I don't know how like good the documentation is at this point, just because it's like early in the frameworks. But like, are people like vibe coding agents yet, or has that happened? Like, what is? Because I'm just imagining from like I'm technical-ish, right? I want to start experimenting with this. Like, and again, just like small stuff where it's like, cool, like I'm gonna give it access to this Twitter account. Here's source information that it can pull from. Go write tweets in a format like this, optimized based off of impressions. Again, something small and dumb, but like when that you compound all of those things, like it gets very interesting. So talk to me about, if you're technical-ish and you're trying to get into this, what does that look like from a process?
Watch YouTube, try as much as possible with Cursor and these tools. Like they are getting good. We have a launch coming up. I don't have the exact date, but it's going to make it a lot easier to do a lot of these things. We've realized it's a huge barrier. But this is a good time to just plug like all the no code agent tools or like, AI automation tools. So like you have Lutra AI, which is incredible. You have Gumloop, which is incredible. You got to try those. You got to use Manus, like try this stuff out. Like it's worth it. There's a bunch of other ones like N8N is amazing. Zapier is really powerful. Like just like, if you're not technical, but you still want to figure out how far you can go with these things, just try out these tools and see how far you can get. I know it's like kind of daunting to like become a developer and try and actually building out these things for yourself, but
It's
like
less than it's ever been. I think that's the thing, though. Like as a marketer, it's like, I historically I'd be like, oh, this isn't a good enough investment from a time standpoint for me because the impact that I can create is like not high enough, right? But like now I'm like, okay, cool. Like I needed a keyword to duplication software for bottom of funnel keywords. Like I wrote it over this weekend with it's deployed now. My team's using it on Monday, right? I'm like, basically was like, this is a pain in the ass. We decided that Friday and this weekend built the software, right? It's nothing like crazy, but it just saved my team like, probably 3 hours of work a week. I mean, we'll do that all day long, right? So I think now it's like we're at that tipping point where maybe it actually does make sense, especially if it's like, oh, if I can figure out how to automate this task that I individually had to do previously, or like delegate to a team or delegate to a team member with one of these agents, like even if it's just like customer, competitor ad research, right? It's like, what are the common threads between everything you're seeing in these 5 like Facebook ad libraries of these 5 competitors. And it just gives me a synopsis of that on a weekly basis for all the new ads, like all day long. I'll do 100%. That's worth it from a build standpoint. So,
sure. Like I think
anyway,
it's just like go through your work week over the next week and literally just like write down in a Google Doc, like here are a bunch of things I think I can automate and get as detailed as possible, take looms of it, whatever it might be. And like either just like tag me on social media or send it to my email, like adam@agentops.ai. I'll literally just tell you like, hey, this is possible or not. Like I love giving like I've just seen so many of these use cases. Like I've tested like over 500 agents now. Like I have a good sense of what works and what doesn't. I wish I could like just once I do my 12 hours in the studio of like getting everything out of my brain, I promise you'll have something to talk to. But this is the type of thing where it's like just start trying. Like go ask people on social media, be like, hey, I do this task every day. Blur out all your personal information and see like if people have responses. We've also been helping like a bunch of companies build out these custom solutions, and it's cool to see like a lot of businesses, they know these problems existed. Like some companies have been told, hey, we've thought about this for the past 5 years, but now we're seeing AI blow up. Like, is this possible now? And we had one website or one company that came to us. They have a bunch of park domains, like an insane amount of park domains. And they want us to create custom websites for all these different park domains and basically have it based on cookie history. Okay, can a new programmatically generated website come up? Almost like how Amazon knows when you show up, hey, you want these products. Can you do the same thing with like news sites and like e-commerce stores, a bunch of stuff like that? And this is something like now the agents is like very possible, but they've been sitting on this idea and like cooking on it for so long. And I think like now it's like just go and like rapidly prototype or like find a team like ours or someone that can like actually just go build this for you. Because you're not going to have a seat at the table in a year from now if you haven't gone and implemented this tech. And I really, really in my heart of hearts believe that just because there's companies who are on the bleeding edge who are just like, all this like historical ideas that these legacy players had, great, we're throwing it all out and we're just going like AI native day zero, and it really is paying dividends for them.
that's amazing, man. What should I be asking you that I haven't been? Like, what's something that like you feel like is the future where all this is headed, especially something that like a head of growth, a founder, like a head of marketing should be focused on over the next, whatever, 9 months?
So a couple of things is like run internal hackathons with your company. Like go and like actually give them access to all these tools and like encourage them, like even if it's like one day, like a month or something like that, just like, hey, I saw like bookmark a bunch of stuff on Twitter and be like, go test this stuff. And like you dedicate like a safe space for them to go work on it where it's like today we're booking off and there's no like email BS that you have to do and all this stuff. It's like I'm gonna go test all these tools. And we've seen a lot of companies have success with that. We've even run some like internal hackathons with like Fortune 500s where it's like, hey, we're just gonna come in and bring you up to speed on all this stuff. That is like you realize how bright your employees are and how excited they are about it. They just don't really have the like the guardrails or whatever to like go and experiment in like a safe way. So like that's one thing I think is super important. Um, Couple other things is just like there's a lot of fluff out there. So like test, like be quick to test stuff, but also be okay with like, it's fine if you do like a little test for $100. If it doesn't work for you, go on to the next thing. Like don't like get pigeonholed to one thing that I have an issue with is like a lot of companies try agents and they have really bad experiences with them. And then they just like write off like the entire prospect of having an agent strategy. And that's one thing that's really, really tough for me to see where it's like be okay like testing stuff and be okay just saying, okay, like I made a small investment in it. It didn't work. I'm on to the next thing. Um, Other things is just
I think that's can we double click? I know
yeah,
we only have a
yeah,
couple more minutes. I just want to
yeah.
go deeper on that idea of like there is so much fluff. Like you see so like huge promises within this agent space. Like how do you filter through that? Is it just try things and see what works, or is there good resources that you would lean on? Like who is the where is the best information to basically get into this for the people that are trying to have initiative and start immediately after listening to this?
Yeah, so Twitter's the best place I find for like really like cutting edge agent stuff. I do like a weekly recap, and I don't want to self plug, but it's like I recap everything that goes on in AI agents every week. I really like everything there is like I've tested or I'm in the process of testing, so I'm like I'm not just putting up fluff. It's really as stuff that I find interesting. Um, but I think that a lot of folks like they want like companies are going to like the McKinseys of the world because they want like an insurance policy, being like, hey, I'm gonna go bring on McKinsey. We know they're gonna go do good work and whatever. But I think you can be your own kind of internal McKinsey now. Like it's like go test a tool, go ask Perplexity, hey, what are customers saying about this tool, and go do this like rapid discovery. So instead of spending like $250,000 having like and no offense to all the consulting firms, but like instead of having them put together some massive brief on like why you should go with this software versus another software, go do it yourself in like a matter of like minutes and hours, and like leverage the tech to go and actually evaluate if it's a good solution. I think a lot of people as well, like if you're not facing the problem, there's no need to find a solution for it. And you might see some flashy demo, like you might look at icon.me and be like, wow, I want to make more UGC. This is great. But if you weren't doing UGC to begin with, you probably don't need to use that tech. So it's like find like the actual problems you're facing. And that's why I'm very big on like create a list of here are all the things that I'm seeing, here are all the issues that I'm seeing, and really leaning into that as much as possible.
Okay, so last thing I want to ask you before you jump, if you want to go build your first agent today, what does that look like? You're a marketer, you're a head of growth, you're a founder, that you're trying to do something for your company. What's the easiest stack that they can do to have something out in the next 2 hours?
Oh, well, like you can get 80% of the way with almost any agent stack. Like you can basically, dream it and you can use whatever top framework you want, whatever tools you want. So that's pretty quick. But I really recommend like anybody who's listening to this, like just start by documenting processes. Like when you're going to start building evals, when you're going to start building reliable agents, you have to have a very clear understanding of exactly what the agent does. If you don't have that, there's no point of even thinking about automation. There's a blog post I'll link to you after that one of our engineers wrote about like how to think through like developing these agents, but it's really critical. Like I can't emphasize enough, like think through like here's the entire workflow and really jump in from there. But Cody, always thank you so much for having me. And we'll go from here, but enjoy the day.
Awesome, man. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate you. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, bye.